Maddox. Coach Maddox is a former roommate of mine, and we obviously worked together for quite a while at Jinx. We've known each other for now, be about 8 years.
Yeah.
I think the first time I ever met Dub was down in Dallas at one of his NFA camps, and I think he said about 3 sentences to me because he was critiquing me the whole time. And I'm not lying, Harper. It was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences of my life. I felt like I was getting like a doctor's examination from Coach Maddox. And then he takes me to the airport, and he says like 3 words to me, like, hey, man, what do you think of this? All right, well, I think I'm going to fly down to Jenks, and we'll see if we can interview you, and maybe we'll get you a job. And I'm like, whoa, that was like the weirdest job interview I've ever had. So I'll let Dub kind of tell his side of the story, but that's what it felt like for me. I was ultra nervous, and then when I did get down there and I met you and Coach Trimble, allegedly, because he was still on suspension or whatever, but what an awesome experience for me, and what a lucky time it was in my life. So without further ado, Coach Maddox.
Yeah, man, that was a good time. I'll never forget that. We get a lot of guys that come through our camp circuits and things like that want to be certified coaches, and there's, I don't have a lot of time, and we got to get down to brass, and we're looking for their Jinx coach, and there's always guys that want to come there, but you're always looking for that right guy. It's that right fit, and I think that's important. Is you got to find guys with that right mindset, and so that's the thing about NFAs. All the guys that are certified with this have a particular mindset and have particular characteristics that you look for in great coaches, and they're hard to find, and that's what I was kind of doing, is just observing, and you were that guy. I mean, you were through and through with the guy that we're looking for, and I was so pumped. And just a lot of times I internalize and process stuff internally, so there's a lot going on. But I was fired up, man, to get you on staff, and that relationship, really changed the course of my football career, man. I mean, that year we lived together was like a doctorate in football.
That was. I mean, it was unbelievable because, again, I'm coming to a whole new place. I'll tell the story about actually when I was actually driving down after you'd already hired me or whatever. I'm kind of like, well, I don't know where I'm going to live. And you're like, hey, man, I got a spare bedroom. You can live with me. So I'm like, well, that was awesome of him to do that. And I get pulled over on the way down in Owasso. So the cop pulls me over, whatever. It's like 4 in the afternoon, and the guy's like, yeah, we get a lot of drunk drivers this time of day and stuff. I'm like, well, I'm moving from South Dakota. I got all my crap in the back of the Ford Fusion. And he's like, oh, yeah, what are you doing? Where are you moving? I said, well, I'm actually moving to Jenks. Oh, okay, yeah, that's a nice place, a good place to be or whatever. He's like, well, what are you going to be doing in Jenks? I said, well, I actually got a job. I'll be coaching with Coach Maddox and Coach Trimble. And he's like, oh, Coach Trimble? Oh, yeah, you're good, man. Don't worry about it. Writes me a warning, sends me on my way, and gets me right down the highway. He's like, oh, you're good, Coach. Hey, best of luck to you, man. I'm like, all right, well, I guess maybe this Oklahoma gig isn't going to be that bad.
Yeah, man. You got to know the right people, right?
But you talk about, the doctorate in football. I know that was kind of your first year. You'd been a pass game coordinator. You'd been a QB guy. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the first year you had to really put an entire offense together. Go back to those moments. Maybe, what were some of the high points? What were some of the mistakes maybe you felt like you made? And how'd you get better from that? Because I know for me, it was the first time I'd also had to do that with you, kind of working hand in hand. And then I also, learning from the mistakes we did make from that. I think we had a great offense, but we got even better from that point forward.
Well, I think the biggest thing you need, especially in that first or so years, you got to have great coaches around you. Mm-hmm. And we had a solid staff. Through and through. The receiver coach, Coach Cal, and was with me for a number of years. So he we worked well together. So it's it's having that chemistry is critical, and having guys you trust and know you got your back is big. That's a big help. If you're in a situation as a first year OC, and a lot of times it can get kind of in the coaching world competitive, a guy might be on staff that wish he would have got the job and things like that. Those are tough environments. So I think, it's very important you surround yourself with people that you trust that first year, and that, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes, and it's a growth process. And, working for a head coach like Coach Trimble is really critical because, I don't know many head coaches that would fully just turn over, an offense, to a first-year guy And I mean, literally, you were there with him. I mean,
Yeah.
Coach would come in. He was sitting on Sundays, and he'd love to draw up some trick plays. Was about it. And
Yeah.
nobody would listen to him. And and he finally got just go to the defensive room. But having a guy that just fully just turns it over to you and gives you that, even though he probably knows you're not, you need some growth and you're going to make mistakes. You're just not going to find that. So I was very fortunate to be in a just a good environment that first year with good assistants and then a great head coach that supports you. I just don't know if there's that many opportunities like that out there.
Definitely not. Talk a little bit about Coach Trim as far as, you've already kind of said a little bit about his leadership style. I know I've talked on a bunch of podcasts about it. Like you've said, he's one of a kind. And you almost have to work for him to really understand it because there is so much misinformation out there about him. You'd hear the guys, oh, he recruits or oh, he does this. And you're like, you know what, really, dude, you really don't know the guy. And all of a sudden you work for him and it's like working for the Godfather himself.
Yeah. He's so hands off, but yet he's so hands on. It's like he has this unique ability to balance so many things. And I think his big thing and what he's always, we've talked about is he always wants to let his assistants just be able to coach, and he handles all the garbage, And
Yep.
I think he did a really good job of just shielding us from all the other things. There's so many things going on behind the scenes in those years with administration, parents, and, you're dealing with all the stuff every head coach has to deal with. And and as an assistant, you're oblivious to it all. You're just showing up and, that's cool. You do all the fun stuff, right? We're piling up, fun tweaks and plays, and he's dealing with all the garbage, and he has the ability not to like let you in on it. When you talk to him, it's like, oh man, everything's great, but once you like get out of it and you hear like all the stuff he's dealing with, you're like, man, how did this guy keep it together? You know what I'm saying? So he has a knack for that, and I think the biggest thing I learned from him was his ability to have empathy for others. And if you read leadership books, you'll find out that empathy and empowerment are the two non-negotiables that every great leader must have, or every great team. And that's what he was unbelievable at. He empowered his coaches to do their job, and he had the unique ability to put himself in everyone's shoes. So he was a master at parent meetings. Getting to sit in with him, like dealing with parents that are hacked off because their kid's not getting playing time or whatever. He's a master. He's a master wordsmith, first of all. The guy is witty. And so, if you get on, he's the most chill and lovable guy. But if you get on his bad side, he will make you feel 1 inch tall. He is a master. There was nothing better when we're up by we'll be in a game up by 35, and I'd be like, hey, Walls, go flip over to the defensive channel, and they got scored on or whatever, and he's just ripping, the defensive coach or whoever. Or ripping officials, I wish I had those recorded, because he had some epic, tongue lashings, and he does it with character. He's not cussing it out. It's like he has just ability just to find that weakness and he'll go in and just annihilate you.
I remember that I'm sitting in the box at Broken Arrow, and we're playing the semis. Remember, and we kicked the ball off to Union after we're mashing them, we're killing them in the semi. I think it was 2012. And we kick off. I remember Union had always taken kickoffs back for touchdowns against us. So he kicked the one, Sky kicked the one, and it goes too far, and the fastest kid in the state catches it, and I think he gets like a 40-yard return down the sideline. And as soon as we kick it, I'm like, oh my God! And Trimble's still on, and he's like, what? I go, we just kicked it to the fastest kid in the state, and you can see Trimble, and he's not very hard to miss on the sideline, but he just beelines it back this way. He's like, I got it. And he heads right back to Carl and just starts reaming him. Every guy other than Carl's just dying on the headsets. He's like, I thought we decided we weren't going to kick it to him. And Carl, well, I didn't kick it. That just set him off.
Oh, man. I could write a book about those kind of moments, man. I'm telling you. I literally wish we had, a reality TV show for our games, because you don't want to be the special teams coach under Trim, because he is real good with special teams. He is really good coach, and that's kind of his little niche. And you do not want to be a special teams coach for Coach Trim.
Oh man. Okay, so I got to ask you this: you being a head coach now at VC, are you that involved with the special teams now? And I also heard a rumor that you're coaching offensive line. Is that true?
Dude, I have converted, man. I have converted. I I hope I can. I'm going to be leaning on you and Harper, man. I tell you what, my first day coaching O-line, it was the greatest thing I've ever experienced. I'll never look back. I don't think it's like it's such a unique group of guys, man, and there's no egos, and it's just that that team, that gang mentality, and I mean they're just so coachable, man, and it's so fun. I love it. Love it. So I am coaching O-line this year. And can't wait. Fired up. Running the power. Some inside zone. Good stuff, man. Weak side power will be a staple in our offense. So you can't.
That's playing football, right?
Dude, it's unbelievable. I mean, won us a state championship at Jinx that 1 year alone, man. So so doing that, I will be involved with special teams for sure. I mean, that's the first thing as a head coach. You realize, you get in there and you're like, man, how critical is special teams? It's like, we've got to win in that. And we've got to make sure we pay attention and practice that. So, yeah.
Harp, I'm going to let you jump in and ask him a couple questions O-line wise, because I know, obviously Coach Maddox has been around the block, been coaching a little bit longer than you, but you were kind of similar as him, hopping into a new position right away. 3 years ago, Coach Maddox been in there. Maybe you guys could see some parallel there.
Well, the thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was just like, I remember Brady talking about stories of you guys. I don't think Brady was teaching us a class maybe that first year. And then obviously, you weren't teaching a class either. So I'd just kind of like to hear some stories or how that was that first year you guys got to be together. And it's like you got the entire day just to talk football. I know you had other stuff that you're doing as well. But right. Especially during the season, it was like a college gig almost. You guys were working football all day, every day. And it obviously it showed when you guys played. But I would assume that had to have been just an awesome time just getting to go football all day, every day.
Yeah, Rowdy. So I think when you look at championship programs, one thing you'll find like coaching staffs that don't have very much turnover, and they have guys that spend a lot of time together. And there's that, you build that language structure and that communication, of your offense. And so everything moves faster, and you can't do it alone as an offensive coordinator. It's like, everyone should be an offensive coordinator on your staff. So you got to get everybody speaking the same language. You got to be in the same mindset. So being able, like Walls was doing, he had his personal training business going on then. And then I was working the camp business. So in the off season, during football season, that's the off season of our businesses. We were a seasonal business. So we would get to, live together that first year and then wake up, and essentially we'd go to the office and we would just grind and watch film and talk about ball and talk about ideas. And there is nothing better than just being able to just not have to go teach 5 hours of biology, and just, talking inside zone steps, talking, slide protection, talking, Y cross and levels concepts. I mean, that just accelerated everything for us. So what we were able to do with our players that year was pretty phenomenal, because we were just able to kind of, make sure is everything linked together? Do we have a process to teach and install this? And you just don't have that ability in high school quite often, to get everyone on the same page, because time is so, minimal.
That's what I was, and me and Walls have always talked about it. And that's one of the things that I've liked the most about, the NFA and some of the stuff that you do is you talk about the common language and everyone knowing exactly what everyone's talking about. And especially in certain parts of football, like just the few years I've been around, like coverages are called 18 different things for the exact same thing. And we've had the mid zone and inside zone argument, and everything is just so different that it's like, is it mid zone this year, mid zone from last year? Is it, what is it, stubby? Is it, all the different stuff that everyone's talking the same thing, but calling it 18 different things. I think that's been, the coolest thing for me to see is just you to be able to talk. Everyone knows what we're talking about.
Right. Man, that is like, if you ask me what's the most important thing, I mean, one of them, it's the language. And we spend so much time making sure the words that we choose to speak to a step, the words that we choose to call it coverage, the words that we choose to call it concept, is important. We just don't, we spend a lot of time. Like, so for example, coming into this new program, I'm spending more time on the defensive side because we're a smaller school. So everybody's coaching both ways. Everybody's going both ways. So, I'm trying to bring that language and that process to the defensive side of the ball. And that's hard to do in bigger schools, because if you have a defensive coordinator on your staff, he knows his language that he learned, and they're not, and I understand that as offensive coordinator, if you come in and told me I had to call this way, that would be tough to do. So I'm in kind of a unique environment now where I can kind of dictate, hey, look, we're going to call, cover one this, and we're going to call, a flood concept this, and we're going to call, a zone blitz this. And now I can cross-train my players that on both sides of the ball, we're calling, concepts and steps and alignments the same thing. So now it helps on scout team. Like,
Yes.
Like we're teaching scout team, hey, getting a tight front. Well, tight front's an under front for us. So, hey, we're going field cat. That's a field zone blitz. So now we don't, like at Jinx, we were having to teach our kids two different languages for the same thing, because the defense would call, a front one way and then we call the other. And it's like, who's willing to change here? And most coaches being stubborn, not having the time to do that, we would be like, well, we're just going to call it what we want. And that confuses everything. So, a long-winded answer, but I think that language concept is critical. And, I think as a staff, if you're putting a staff together or you're an OC, I think you really need to spend a lot of time with your guys, deciding what we're going to call everything.
We just had a conversation about that yesterday. We were talking to a coach, and we had the exact same conversation about, hey, on scout team, the guy, he hated scout cards. He didn't want to be able to do scout cards, and then he was GA, and it was an up-tempo offense, and so he got to where he had to, make up his own calls and stuff, and he said, how great would it be if, and he started learning the defense's calls, and now, they're training the 2s and 3s to learn their defense, or you're training your JV offense, who's going to be a scout team, and you're calling it the exact same play, whatever. I'm sure every team you play is going to run zone. So as long as you call it what you call it, now your kids are getting 15 reps of zone every day with your 2s.
Yeah. And so, you think about it, it's really a simple concept, right? I mean, but the problem is to do that, it takes so much time and work to get everybody on the same page, and you have to let your ego go a little bit probably. And that's where the bottleneck is with staffs, is people aren't willing to, one, put in the work to do that, and one, give up their ego. Hey, if you've been calling this for 15 years, are you willing to call it, cheeseburger or whatever you decided? I mean, it's
Right.
like, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, it's like, let's get on the same page. But, I mean, if you can do that and do the work up front, man, your life in August, September, doing all those scout teams and just, game planning is so much easier. I mean, you look at Huddle, and now we can, we input and everything's the same, called the same. And so on both sides of the ball, there's that, that uniformity there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had to change, what I have to call a defense to break it down. And even then, it's like you said, you get to these different staffs, and heck, I've been on a lot of different ones. Every single guy on staff seems like they have a different way to call it or a different idea. And that was the one thing I took from you, Dub, was number one, that finding a common language. So when I did finally be able to go to Broken Arrow and kind of lead my own offense, that was one of the first things we did. And I met with Coach Harper, because I knew Coach Harper had been in a system like Houston where they had to simplify. If you're going to go ultra fast, everything was going to have to be simplified. We'd already done a bunch of that at Jinx. We just were able to code word a lot of that stuff too. The second thing that I took from you, and I'll always take that too, dealing with R4 was the idea of buckets or families, and being able to teach the same thing. So being able to almost teach it like, okay, it's in this family because of this, right, and here's the rule behind it, and we're going to call things this because of that. And when I was able to do that and teach my 6 basic concepts that I installed right away, our kids were able to learn it so much faster. Yeah. All right. And they knew it inside and out. And then now when you would teach the concepts of rhythm, read, release, rush, all of those different things that you need to know for that, they understood the footwork, they understood the mechanics of it, they understood the timing of it, and the receivers were able to do the same thing. And all you had to do from that point then was just tag certain routes. It maybe changes the progression a little bit. But, everyone's like, oh, you run the R4 offense, or you run the West Coast offense. I mean, you probably hear it all the time, and everyone's like, oh, you run R4, you R4. No, I use R4. Right. R4 is the operating system for how I teach, how I learn, and how I'm able to talk with my players. And, I mean, that to me, when I came in and I learned with you in 2010, I'd never heard of it, and it completely changed the way I taught. And you know why I did it? I saw it work. And then I was able to apply it at Broken Arrow, and it also worked.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, being in the same district and you see it, I would watch your film every week, and you're seeing it. So there's Patriot, there's Slash, there's Charger, I mean, like, and you're seeing the quarterback you do it, and I'm like, man, this sucks, man, because these guys got it rolling, and we're gonna have to beat them. So I was selfishly glad when you left, man, because that passing game was dialed in, and then Harper had the run game going. So, there you go.
That was going to be my question was you've got this great system, you've come up with it and all this stuff, and now you get a guy like Walls who, and I'm not sure what other coaches do or don't use it, but you do get a guy like Walls who is starting to use that same system, and now you're coaching against him, and so kind of what was that like as far as now you've got to coach against a guy that's using that same system, or I'm sure you've done that before, but I'm sure it's obviously a little bit of excitement because it's still you started your system or using that background, but also you're having to, go against that guy.
Yeah. It's bittersweet because, I think as coaches, if we find or stumble upon a better way to do things, we want to kind of keep that and be real possessive about it and not share it with anybody. And, so there's that element to it, but it was also cool just to see it work in another program and see how well it worked. And, obviously, working against even, our own defense at the time. And I mean, there'd be times where I just know, okay, here comes freaking Patriot, man. It's coming. I mean, it's like, Walls gets in 2 tight end trips, and I'm like, okay, here comes the freaking tunnel screen, man. It's like, I'm like calling it out, I'm like, oh, man, just touchdown, oh, here comes freaking pin pull to the nub, I'm like, man, it's just – but so that's tough. But I mean, to see Walls go and take it and have success with it, I mean, it was validation that what, this does work and it is good. And so I think at the end of your coaching career, I think if you look at it long game, I mean, that's what you want to leave is like a legacy, and you want to leave something behind that made this game better and help people's lives. And so if you look at it from that perspective, hey man, that's good. It's all good.
I'm curious, do you remember, some of the first times that you started hearing other coaches, call things like Patriot? They come up to you and say, hey, when you're running Patriot and then this, and this, do you remember when you first started hearing that and kind of how that was? Because we're starting to hear some guys say some things about the podcast, and it's like, oh, wow, that's really cool. We're out there. So, kind of curious about that too.
Yeah, no, I remember it was probably a couple years after we started, came out with the DVDs and the book, you start hearing, concepts like, for example, I was watching NFL Network one day, and I forget who it was. I think it was Cam Newton was talking about dropping back and reading routes, and he was talking about capped and uncapped. He's using language, and I'm like, man, and like my buddies are texting me video, like, can you believe this? And like Bruce Arians' book, he had a quarterback book the other day, and somebody gave a little snippet out of his book, his audio book, and he was talking about throwing on rhythm and throwing the read route, and so I mean it's like, well, maybe they came up that on their own, but I mean, I don't know. You start hearing all these like commonalities with this language, and there's probably not a coincidence there, So it's pretty cool to hear that stuff.
The other thing I thought was awesome that you did too with concepts was you were able to take, all of these West Coast passing concepts, and obviously we built them into families, but you were also able to take plays and almost make them like hybrids of each other. Like, so for instance, Seahawk with a couple of tweaks, you could almost run Seahawk as it almost could act like double slant. It could act, as a 4 verti killer hitting the ball in the seam. It could also act with the tag as smash, and it was also regular levels if they were playing cap. So, I mean, you're basically teaching 4 concepts in one, and you're not having to have all these other calls. So talk a little bit about that, because honestly, that was another one of the big things I took from you is pare down your pass game, but then through the usage of tags, now it looks like, God, these guys run 25 concepts. No, right. We run 8.
Right. Yeah, so that was kind of the premise of the book of Adapt or Die was the ability to create adaptability with simplicity. So I think you can't create adaptability within concepts or your structure until you understand the relationships between concepts. And so once you have that family structure and you can see the relationships between concepts and what they attack. So it's like, before that I would have like 3 different concepts that attack the same space. Why do I need that? Why do I need 3 different plays that attack the same areas? And so that's where I kind of went down the rabbit hole of trying to define, okay, what are the families of concepts in the football, in the passing game? And so that here's the 5 families from the intermediate. So you have 4 vertical, you have 3 vertical. right? And so those protect each other. So if a defense is basically, has uncapped seams, you go 4 vertical, cover 3. I mean, we know that. But what takes those away? Well, it's any kind of 2 high. So that's where the 3 vertical concept comes in. So once I understand that 4 vertical concept protects 3 vertical and vice versa, then I need to know, okay, I need a 4 vertical concept in my passing game, and I need a 3 vertical. And, there's only really one way you can run 4 verticals, right? So 3 verticals, there's several different ways you can draw 3 vertical concepts. So now we got to decide which 3 vertical concept do we want to be our staple this year in our offense. Okay, and the next families were smash concepts and curl concepts. So smash create horizontal stretches on a flat defender. Curl concepts create horizontal stretch on a flat defender. Smash creates a vertical stretch on a flat defender. So those protect each other. And then the last one were just general flood concepts. Those attack sides of space. So that's like a full, deep third stretch to the side of the field. So that's really the 5 base families of intermediate pass concepts. I mean, there's really every concept in football is going to boil down into one of those 5, right?
Yep.
So once you understand those 5 families, now you can see, okay, in my offense, I need at least one concept in each of those families. And then now, what if I could take a concept like a curl concept and tag it with a different route to get a smash concept? What if I could tag that concept with another route to get a 3 vertical? So that's where those like hybrids started to come into play. So my goal was to find, what we call all-weather concepts that can be, one in each family with tags. And now, in a team like now where I'm in a 2A school where everyone goes both ways, it's very critical because I don't have time to teach 5 different plays. And I don't have time to get good at 5 different ones. I need that one play that has all of those ability to run those different variations of families with tags. So
it's funny you say all that because when you talk about it, basically you had 3 groups right there, and there's 2 plays that protect each other. Those were the exact things that I sat down and I said these are the 6 basic ones, and that was all stuff that I'd learned from you. And it made it real simple. I knew that I needed to have a boundary flood concept. I knew I needed to have a field flood concept, and I didn't need to have anything else. So boom, I'm done. I knew that I needed to have your 3 vertical play. Patriot was that play for me. And I loved Patriot and I loved Charger because now I had built-in shallows. I didn't have to teach shallow, right? I had vertical plays and I had shallows that I could work underneath. Cool. All those things are melded together. Quick game. I never ran quick game. If it's a single receiver, maybe you're throwing some stuff on rhythm. You're taking the freebie, the gift, whatever they want to call. But I also got that from you. You didn't run quick game because you had Seahawk. You didn't need quick game. I remember sitting in Minnesota when I got to speak for NFA, and we got like 18 inches of snow. So the next day on Sunday, there was one group of people in there, and it was all the offensive staff from Minnesota State. And they're sitting in there, and I remember I had to come up with a cut up or whatever because I didn't have any cut ups from R4. They're like, I want you to talk R4. And I'm like, dude, I've known R4 for 2 months or 3 months or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. But I remember the only play that I really put on there, I put 88 and 98 Seahawk.
Yeah.
And it was a saw running it. So they'd show it this is the same play. And I showed all of his drops. So he was able to throw stick quick. He's able to throw, rhythm corner because we made, our money calls. He's throwing the seam. He's throwing it on rhythm. And he's able to throw the fin on a read step. Mm-hmm. They're like, you guys, that one play, that's not just quick. I'm like, no. It showed all of the different variant drops that you could do on that. Like, yeah, I guess it's quick game. Yeah, I guess it's 5-step. Yeah, I guess it's a rhythm throw. But to me, that just changed my whole mind as far as the limit. There's no limit to what you wanted to do. So what I did with Patriot is I got rid of spacing. Yeah. So I didn't run spacing anymore. So I said, you know what? I'm going to run two posts or a double post, and I'm going to scat the back.
Right.
I didn't have to worry about it. So, I mean, it was, to me, it was just phenomenal how you could put all those plays together. I loved it.
Yeah, man. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Coach, are you following along?
I am. I know a couple of the
plays. We talk some run game here, man.
No, I know a couple of them. I know Patriot was my favorite because you could throw the post. Let's go deep. Let's roll. Go Wall.
Yeah.
Go Wall. Putting that one. No, but we've talked to a couple of quarterback coaches or offense coordinators, and they talk just about how far behind quarterback footwork is, and that's another big one that I know Wall's harped on, and I'm assuming you do as well, Coach. Yeah. With there's so many high school and even college quarterbacks that they're in gun and they're happy feet, hot feet, whatever, and they're throwing it. They don't have any type of footwork along with it. And we were just talking to a coach, and I don't remember who it was. It was just saying how far behind most quarterbacks are when it comes to footwork. So you have any thoughts on maybe why that is? So many quarterbacks are so far behind, and why is it so important for you guys and what you do to have great footwork?
Well, your feet are your clock, and so you have to have the quarterback the ability to adjust the clock. And what we did is we took that family structure and we established 5 base families of shotgun and under center drops, and that was another chapter in the new Adapt or Die book was how to time up my feet or adjust or extend the timeline or change the timeline based on what I'm seeing. If you watch Aaron Rodgers cut ups, I mean, the guy's a master at adjusting his drops based on what he's seen with the defense. So, maybe it's like an intermediate concept and he comes out and they're like getting ready to bring a zero blitz or something. And so you'll see the speed of his feet change. You'll see him adjust his footwork and his speed based on what he's seeing. And, he's getting the ball out faster. Or if you'll see maybe like a drop 8 defense, like a 7-on-7 style. And so now you'll see him be more methodical in his drop. He might take a punch step. He might extend like a base, 3-step drop to a 5-step in shotgun. And so, once you teach your kind of quarterback those 5 families of drops, of base drops, then he can kind of, assign which one of those 5 he's going to use based on what he's seeing. And so, I'm not saying like on a concept like you have to use this drop. What we do is we teach the different drops in practice, and we teach kind of the scenarios in which you could use those. And then I let him, kind of determine the game by feel of what he uses. But by having the relationships, it gives you context to coach from, if that makes sense. So now, we can watch film. I say, hey, right here, it might have been better to use a punch step, in a 3-step drop to give you an additional 0.2 of a second of time to process this play versus zone where you just took a quick 3. And so I think that's probably one of the most undercoached aspects of quarterback play. And if you don't stay on that through the year, your quarterback will deteriorate. And that's one of the things I learned my first year coaching quarterbacks is just watching my guy early in the season be real crisp with his drops. And then you get into the season, you're more worried about, installing plays and throwing routes. And you put in week 4, 5, 6, and you start to see his footwork deteriorate. And then you start to see him missing throws and being late with throws. So that's something just like your steps in O-line. Every day you're taking your steps and there's a rhythm to the steps and that's kind of what I'm learning being an offensive line coach is, those steps are the same thing as drops and learning how to adjust your steps based on different techniques or the concept called. So, this is a space that we've got to live in and make sure we're really doing a good job coaching no matter what position.
And then the other cool thing that I saw Walls always do, and I don't know how it spans across between both of you guys, but cool thing, he very rarely, if ever, taught coverages like you hear most coaches teach coverages as far as, okay, he's too high, but he's here and it's this. So maybe it rolls now it's 1 high. And so you got to know if 1 high, we're doing this, this, and this. That wasn't something that he coached because, and maybe he can talk about it a little bit better than I can, but bogged down a lot of the thinking with the kids. And I know I've read a couple of your articles as far as now what happens when the kid doesn't do what he's supposed to do. What if he's not in 2 or what he's not in 1? He's somewhere in the middle. So is that something also that you teach as well? I apologize for not knowing a ton about it, but I know enough from Walls, and kind of how he did it. I don't know how that spans across.
Yeah. So, so in the SEC last year alone, there were 73 types of different coverages played. I think, Nick Saban has 16 or 17 variations of cover 1 alone. So, when you get up to these higher levels, and you're seeing that filter down to high school too, because information's so easily shared through podcasts like this, through, social media, through websites. And so, I think we have to do a better job as coaches in the high school game of giving our quarterbacks a better way in a process to evaluate the reality of what we're seeing. And so that's kind of where, our 4, lives is in the ability to read the reality of what you're seeing and have a language to communicate that. So coverage really, like, we talk about cover 1, 2 read, all those things, but that's just kind of a starting point. But most of the time that we spend with our players watching film is the route space that we're attacking at that point in time and what's the dominant positions of those defenders in that space within that time. So, the ability to have the language of capped and uncapped, we talk about hip angles, we have clear definitions for those, really allows us to, see the reality of what we're seeing as opposed to just, oh, hey, it's cover 0 this week. and then you see cover zero, and then you go out in the game and everyone's playing cover zero with the exception of that field corner. He's playing zone technique and he's over, the hard deck, and he's playing a zone technique on the field. And so you're throwing the post to your number one receiver, and it's capped from the get-go, And so that's kind of what I learned is that, back in the day where everything was more static coverage, now it's active, it's movement, it's pattern reading. So you have to have the ability to communicate quickly the reality of what you're seeing. And that's what R4 is. It's a language of leverage. And so that's, coverage is just a starting point for us. But we spend more time talking about capped and uncapped space and hip angles. And when you get into that deep part of the woods there with your quarterback, it opens up a whole new world of seeing space and being confident. And I'm doing that now with the new QB at my new school. And I'm telling you that the growth he's had in just 1 week is phenomenal. So it's been kind of good to go to a new environment and kind of test this whole thing. It's like hitting the reset button, and you've been in a program for 13 years and you established all this stuff. And you kind of wondered, is this really going to work, elsewhere? Is it going to work at a 2A school where everyone goes both ways? And what we're finding is that, man, it works well, and kids are really grasping the concepts.
It made sense to me because, again, I was an analytic. I'm a scientist guy too. Dub taught science, so I don't know if people knew that, but Dub has always had like a scientist mind. So when he was studying things, he was always asking why. And if people could explain why, I think you and I would both agree. But if they couldn't explain why, then I was going to be like, well, why are you doing it? I'd always think the exact opposite. Well, it made sense to me because Dub would put it in these terms, basically. Why would I look at something, why would I look at a player where I don't want to throw the ball? Why would I want to be looking where I want to throw the ball? And, I know you talk about peripherals and things like that and hip angles. That just allows them to anticipate that space. So when I was coaching guys like Yeager, that was the way he thought. When you would go back there and somebody would ask a quarterback, what coverage did you see? Errors. What was the space open? How was the guy playing? And he could tell you that stuff. Hey, coach, he had outside leverage. I knew I could fit the ball inside. He didn't have any underneath help. He could find those spaces because that's what we did talk about, Harper. And again, this is one of the things I learned from Dub. Why read key a guy? I should be able to see open spaces where I'm going to throw the ball. That's where my eyes should naturally go. That's going to make me more accurate as a passer.
Yeah, teach your quarterback how to read the space, not the man. See, most quarterbacks, they lock into their receiver, and instantly your vision you got tunnel vision and you're narrow focused, and your visual space is limited. If you teach your quarterback to read the route side space on his drop, the peripheral opens up and you can see so much more. And there's all kinds of scientific, context to back all that up. That would take a whole other podcast. But the idea is just to keep it simple here is teach your quarterback to read the route side space on the drop, not the man that they're throwing to. And just doing that alone, you'll be amazed at how much it clears up his vision.
Harper, I've been playing, Maddox. I don't know. I might ask you for some advice on this, but today I counted. I had 31 guys to coach all by myself, and I had to play quarterback. So you got any advice on that? How I could teach those guys?
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm playing quarterback, and I'm using all those things that we talk about. If the guy's playing man and he's got leverage, if the guy's sitting on top and I'm throwing it back shoulder, and all the kids are like, man, coach, you play quarterback? Like, dude, I couldn't throw it all. When you understand all these concepts, and it hit me when I was sitting in the meetings today. That's what Dub was talking about, how this can work with any quarterback. Doesn't matter if he's a D1 kid. It doesn't matter if he's, a 1A kid. It really doesn't matter. These concepts are, basically laws for me now. So even an old man like me at 39, I can put the ball in some spots that maybe there was no prayer of me doing it because I didn't know any better when I was younger.
Yeah, and that's the thing about R4. I think, it works within the constraints of football. And so, in order to really have a good system, we're not just talking football, any kind of system that exists in the world, that's the elite, that's the best. Like what you'll look at is it doesn't allow you to do there is constraints, there's boundaries. And that R4 works with the limits of football, and that's space, time, and talent. And it defines those. And once you understand your boundaries, like an artist, an artist can't create a masterpiece unless he knows, what type of wood and what's the size of the frame, what's the type of canvas I got, what's the size of the canvas, and how many colors do I have. It's not like, it's not limitless, right? And so and that's what makes great artists is they're able to take what they've got and they're able to make a masterpiece. And some years it might be 3 colors and, a small piece of canvas. And some years it might be, the Sistine Chapel, I mean, it's like you have a limitless amount. So I think that's the beauty of any system. And so it's really important you understand the limits of your players every year. So I think, that's one of the things that, we're going into a new program. We're assessing, I'm an idiot and a fool if I think I'm going to be able to run what I did at Jinx. I mean, just foolish. So it's like, okay, what do we have to work with? What's our strengths? Okay, here's the concepts we're going to run. Here's how we're going to tag it and create adaptability with it. And let's roll. And so I think that, you really have to spend a lot of time as a staff to really identify year in, year out, okay, what do we have? What's their concept capacity? How much can they understand? And what can they do under pressure? And can we get all this installed? So it's a lot of work, but when you get it down, it's better to do it on the front end than the back end, mid-August, mid-October, during that district week,
I've heard a little bit before that you've done it before, but how much are you right now doing, or in the past few years, are you getting up there and having the quarterback the ability to kill it, whether it's, run weak to strong, or I think in the past you've been able to, I think that Brady's told me, been able to go up there, boxes loaded, kill it into a pass play. But how much are you guys trying to do that, and does it depend on, how smart your quarterback is, obviously?
Yeah, I think when you start out, the first thing we do is we have kind of handcuffs on our quarterback as coaches, and I kind of dictate the ability to check a play or to check or to do a different route tag. And once he's kind of proven to me in practice in a few of those games or scrimmages that, he understands those concepts, we'll start to release the handcuffs a little bit. So I think the kid's got to kind of earn, the right to do that, and he's got to show that he can make the wise decision. R4 allows you to do that faster because you're speaking the same language and you've defined what open is. This is a kind of a funny quick story. A couple years ago, I went to a school that I will not name, but a very good college program. And I was watching the spring ball. And so they're an up-tempo team. They're snapping like every 12 seconds. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it's like, I couldn't imagine. Anyway, the defensive coordinator is just, he's hacked off, and there's they'll say. And the quarterback, they call the post concept, I think it was a post dig concept, and he rears back, and just chunks the post into like double coverage. And so he comes back to the behind the huddle, and they're snapping, the other team's still going. And the offensive coordinator, which is the head coach, is there, and him and this quarterback have a minute and 42-second conversation about what was open for that one play. So think about, they were snapping like every 15 seconds. How many plays were snapped in that 1 minute and 42-second conversation? And so they're back there and they're arguing on what was open. And I'm like, hey man, post capped, let's roll. It's like, and so now then the head coach turns around and by that time he's off his script, like 6 plays. And he's like, what the heck's going on? And it put the whole practice in a bind. And I'm just kind of sitting there. I'm like, man, R4 would help you guys so much, if they understood, the ability just to process this stuff quickly. And that was my whole point with this, is having that common language and be able to accelerate that decision-making would be really helpful for a lot of big programs.
No doubt. Going to a tempo place and I talk about Nebraska all the time just because I think, guys like Coach Frost and some of those guys are kind of on that cutting edge. But that's the first thing he talks about is, if you're going to be a tempo system, having concise coaching cues, and when kids would talk to him, and give an answer in a language that you haven't talked about, it's not that common language. He goes, no. I want you to speak Nebraska. You're going to speak our language. And he says, but those coaching cues have to be short and concise, and kids know exactly what those things mean. Mm-hmm. And they talk about him in the meetings all the time too. Hey, we're going to say it this way. You're going to say it this way. We can't say it that way. We don't have time. And then they're going to confuse kids. Yeah. So, in today's day and age of tempo offenses, R4 is a necessity. And again, I think people get the wrong idea. It's not an offense. It's an operating system. Right. And it's one of the best operating systems I've ever seen.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that.
Well, Coach, we talked a little bit about the groupings and pass and stuff, so I'm kind of curious about run game. I know when we were, designing it for my offensive line at Broken Arrow, we kind of put it into, zone, man, and gap scheme, groups, so they can, again, even if they don't know the play, if they know the group, they can at least step with the right foot, have the general knowledge of probably who they're going to have, and each play's got its own little thing. But it's grouped in. So what's your groupings with your offense as far as the run game goes?
Yeah, so the 5 families of run game, you've got your zone is your zone, inside zone. I'm calling it wide zone. This is not an outside zone. So your inside zone, midline, wide, all those variations, that's the first family. Your second family is your gap schemes, your power, your counter. Your third family are your sweep schemes. So that would be more of a pin pull. There's those outside runs that are designed to hit outside. That would be more of your outside zone sweep or your jet sweep game. And then the fourth family is your insert schemes, like your isolation, ISO. And then the fifth family is going to be all of your options. So if you're a veer team, your RPO games, that's kind of that flood concept family. So what you'll start to see is you lay like the intermediate families next to the run families, you'll start to see a horizontal relationship, go with these along with these families. So it's pretty cool to see when you lay it all out. But that's really the 5 families of run game. And once you understand those families, you can kind of dictate, hey, who are we going to be, based on our talent level each year.
I was about to say, I've seen you guys go through just in the few years that I've been at Broken Arrow watching Jinx, a couple different, heavier with gap schemes certain years, and then, in other years, later years or whatever, be a little more heavy with some of your zone schemes and stuff like that. And then obviously always a good trick player too, every game that we played against you guys.
Sure. Yeah, man. You got to have one in the chamber ready to roll, right time.
That's right.
I just always liked what we were going to come up trying to name those things. And I remember to get Maddox fired up about him, you'd always have to make something related to Point Break.
Oh, yeah.
So if you get a trick play or a run play related to Point Break, Maddox was getting jacked for it, man.
You get, Bodie's always a good trick play. That's always – Pappas was a great one. I love that tag. That scheme won us a huge playoff game, Union one year. So, I mean – man, yeah, we could go all day on that bad boy.
I was going to say, that's the other thing. I know it's always one of my favorites because, when you and I did work together and we're grinding and we had a lot of fun with it, but, it was always movie quotes and movies, and then it was always U-Rock that we had to listen to. I don't know if U-Rock's still around, but that stuff kept me alive for about a year, man.
Yeah, we started to have we know every song, every word to every song, and started to have little mimics for all the words. It was pretty entertaining. But yeah, I think you can tell a lot of guys by the movies that he likes, and if the coach, that's like my first interview criteria is sit down, okay, what's your favorite movies, and give me a few of your favorite quotes, and if we can relate on that, we're gonna be all right, man. That's like my way to weed out coaches that wouldn't be able to work well with me.
What are some of the go-tos then?
Oh, man. I think I put that list out there a couple of years ago, required movie viewing list for our players because so many players, as I'm getting older, they haven't seen these movies. So it's like I created that, top, I don't know, it was the top 20 or 30 movies that are must see. So, you got to have your action, you got to have your comedies in there. So that's what it was by genre. But, Point Break, Braveheart, Dumb and Dumber, you got to have a good mix in there.
As I say, if you hadn't seen Braveheart, Dumb and Dumber, and I think Point Break, that was like automatic. You weren't going to play, I think, was pretty much what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, that was required viewing to get playing time at Jinx,
I had to get Harper learned up on a few of those too. He had seen Tombstone, thank God.
Oh man, dude, let's go. How many quotes are in that one?
A million, and it's on TV all the time. I think we've seen it in the office like 1,800 times. It's unreal how much it's on TV.
I think our whole staff could probably communicate everything that we need to each other with Tombstone quotes, and get through the day, make it through the day. We could just quote Tombstone, and we could get stuff done.
Coach Drinkall, the last guy that was just on, he's the head coach at Kansas Wesleyan. He takes his whole team. They rent out a theater, and he shows them all Tombstone.
Oh man, that's genius.
He makes them all watch it.
My kind of guy right there, man. That's awesome.
Harper had never seen Lebowski, though, so that was like one of the prerequisites instantly.
I was a no-go on Point Break and Lebowski.
All right, Harper, you're off the podcast.
That's what I thought. I thought I was going to be fired. I had to go watch it. They weren't on Netflix. I had to be creative about how I watched them.
That's grounds for dismissal right there. Yeah.
That was what I'd say. I was waiting. He's like, Coach Walls, when are you going to give me more responsibility? And I'm like, as soon as you start quoting Lebowski, we'll start dishing out some more roles for you.
Yeah, the dude, man. The dude abides.
So here's my thing. Okay, so now you're coaching offensive line. All right, what are some of your non-negotiable drills for offensive line? All right,
Yeah.
because I mean you're kind of starting from square one. What were the things you found? Because I know you've studied the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Things that you found were most important.
Right now it's about just the fundamental technique of your steps and then engaging, proper, strikes with your hip and your hands. I mean, it's like we're just trying to spend time right now just teaching our kids how to, fire their hips through their hands and, maintaining tensegrity, which is a fancy word just for, tension in your lower body and locking the inner unit core. And it's amazing how much more force you can generate when you get proper hip and joint alignment. And so that's, like our kids are so raw, like it doesn't matter, what they know unless they can get the proper steps and strikes. So we've really just been like level one, dialing in on that right now.
I think the first two steps, for offensive line is the most overlooked thing with offensive line. It's unreal. And to me, it's even like it's the catch-all for things. I'd have arguments with my college coaches and they'd, tell me I needed to study a certain defensive lineman more and more because, he might slant on these times or these down distance. And I'd say, yeah, but you've always told me if I get two steps in the ground, this technique is going to work against them. So why don't I just do the technique and let it work? And
Right.
And, from what I found, you get that second step in the ground, you get it vertical. It cuts off angles. It gets you some power whenever you do make contact. And you can just watch clip after clip after clip of guys not getting that second step in the ground, or that second step hangs and they're on that double team and it opens that hip. And you hear so many offensive line coaches screaming about, you gotta stay square. You gotta get hip to hip. When they don't start talking about that inside, that guard, that inside guy, his second step's hanging. He wants to stay square, but if you're getting contacted and that foot's not in the ground, your hip has to open. And so I think that's just by far the most overlooked thing is that second step.
Without a doubt. I mean, if I can just get that down this season, I'll be happy. I mean, because it's so hard for guys. And then you go into a team camp, they get blown up and they're trying to think about what their responsibility is, and then the technique just goes out the window. So, man, I agree. It's so critical.
That's why I think you said it right there. The guy's getting blown up and they're thinking about it. How many reps can I get him? And I liken that back to Coach Trimble forcing us to think about ways to do more reps. So like with one-on-one pass rush, having three groups going at the same time. And it wasn't me sitting there, dictating and orating and speaking the whole time. It's like, hey, fix this. Let's go. Another rep, another rep, another rep, another rep. And then eventually those kids have done it enough times to where they get it figured out and they watch it on film and they hear you say it. I mean, that stuff just fixes a lot. So like you're saying, get rid of some of the clutter in their head and get those guys reps. You'll see results instantly.
Yeah, without a doubt, man.
My last big kind of question for you, Coach, and I'll end it with the last question. But my big go-to right now has been how to really streamline our meetings with our kids, because you don't want to bring. I would love to bring the kids in there and watch all 2 hours of practice, and we film everything and get to watch everything. But the fact of the matter is they got about 15 minutes where they can really digest and they're really into it, and then it's over. So trying to find out how I build cutouts for practices and get the most out of what I want from film. So when you go in and you've got time from the day before, it's Tuesday, you're watching Monday's practice and you're making cutouts for it for the guys to watch. What are some of the big things that you're looking for, and how do you keep that small and concise and letting them see what you want them to see, but without all the extra stuff that I'm probably sure that you'd like to show them, but just don't have the time or the mental capacity?
Yeah, I think with huddle, I think it's important, like with practice, is we, going in and actually tagging your practice. And I don't know if that's something that's just standard, but used to we just say, you guys go watch practice film and nothing was organized. But like the kids, tagging your formation, your protection, your play. If you even have time, the coverage it's against. And so it just makes them where they can, if you go watch it on your own, they have kind of some guidelines. Okay, here's all the, inside zone cut-ups. This is what it is. That's one thing. The other thing is just, really being good at distilling down, the non-negotiable things that are errors that we're making, and just show those most important clips. I mean, and so, if you have 15 minutes, it's like, how many clips can I really get through in those 15 minutes if I want to, teach that? So, if I have 25 clips for a 15-minute, meeting, that's not going to happen. So, so trying to figure out, how long it takes you to get through a clip, organizing that. And then, as you're installing stuff, one of the things we use is we use our poker chips. And I know, Walls, I think you use some of that. And I think it's a great tool for your line. Is just, and it keeps everybody engaged, because I think, Rowdy, you were saying, like, after, so much time, the kids kind of punch out because they're not engaged. And so when you put the chips or some sort of visual in front of them where they can move and you can, have instant feedback, are they understanding? I think that's a better way to have maybe longer meetings and get more out of them. So I think there's several different ways that you can attack that problem. But the main thing is you got to have a plan, and you got to put some time into it as a coach and not just throw it together at the last second.
Yeah, I was going to say, that engagement piece has been a lot, and that's something I've actually learned a lot moving up here and getting back into the classroom. And it's been a pretty progressive educational environment. They're calling it, differentiation, figuring out ways to reach as many kids as you possibly can, and then finding out ways to engage it. And honestly, the more independent projects that I've done, like in the classroom with chemistry, you see a lot of these kids light up. So some of these kids, just giving them independent projects they can go get done, and then creating the engagement, maybe saying, hey, you're gonna present how we run weak power to the team. Well, and all of a sudden it creates kind of that heightened awareness, like, well, is coach going to make me present, outside zone force next week or what? So they're kind of sitting on the edge of their seat there. So that's been something that I've really spent a lot of time on too.
Yeah, small group video is good as well. I mean, Rowdy, how many offensive line coaches do you have on BA? Like 7?
We got 2. We got 2, okay. And then we just got tight ends coach, and then obviously with Coach A, he's an extra one.
So I think, if you have that resource, I think breaking up your film into small groups is really good too. I think that's, if you really want to get deep and spend, good quality time on reps, I think, if you can break into smaller film groups, you can get a lot more covered in a short amount of time and keep them engaged.
I tell you that the one thing I've done to try to attempt, like you said, let them watch it on their own is I've made a column for each position. So left tackle, and then when you go through and grade, you can type it in right there as long as they're on your kind of column. So that's helped me out, quite a bit. But also like I said, trying to keep it concise and to where they're in it and then ready to roll. But last question I kind of ask everybody, and it's my big one that I don't know, I always like to hear. But you're watching another team's offensive line, and you obviously watch a ton of film. You're watching another team's offensive line. What's some things they'd be doing that would make you think really highly of their offensive line coach?
Yeah, so I've heard a lot of good answers. That I think that you've covered a lot. But for me, being a quarterback guy, the thing that I look at that stands out to me is that how they pass protect. And to me, pass protection is not passive. I like seeing like offensive lines on pass protection, like just destroying guys. Finding work. Not being passive with pass protection. I think, from an offensive line standpoint, you look at it, what's something the offensive line, they don't enjoy doing. I mean, what they enjoy doing, it's running the football, right? I mean, it's like,
right.
Like, oh, crap. Can we just freaking run it? and the same for receivers. What do they like to do? Well, they like to, catch the ball and run routes, and then the run play's called, and then they're, pissed off and frustrated. And so I think identifying like what's the position group, what's that thing that they don't enjoy doing, that's the kind of thing I gravitate towards a coach and try to figure out ways to get them to buy in for that. And so, from an offensive line perspective, going and coaching the line, hey guys, when we call, I know pass protection is not as fun as run blocking. I get it, but let's figure out a way to create a defensive mentality and a destroyer mentality on our pass pro, and showing clips and finding guys that do that. And I think if you can create that aggressive mentality on pass pro, I think it transitions to everything, and you highlight that. So that's the thing I look for is, or think that stands out to me, is offensive linemen that just really are aggressive with pass protection.
When you were a receivers coach at Broken Arrow, that's what everyone always said about your receivers, is they were so good in the run game as far as blocking. Is that kind of the same thing you were trying to do with them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think that's with coaching, it's like finding what we don't naturally like to do well, and how do we figure out ways to inspire our kids and motivate them to do those things great and make them be great at those things. So that's what I'm trying to identify, in every facet of our program with coaches and players is, what are the little things that are mundane that we don't enjoy doing, and how can we, create and make those fun and get that mentality going. And so that's always been a big deal for me. I saw Walls had you had your receiver, I think your war mentality of blocking, which is really cool. I think a lot of coaches are fired up about that. But I think that's that concept, is like figuring out a way to make these guys buy into these little things that we don't naturally enjoy doing. And then once you do those and you create that mob mentality, it's like, man, this is fun. And then big runs start to happen, big wins. And that's how you create a good culture of a program is doing those little things well. So
I've preached that a lot too with, naturally offensive linemen hate receivers. And receivers don't understand offensive line. They don't know how hard and physical it is. So I think when you can bridge that gap and all of a sudden, the O-line sees those guys grinding and you'd show it on film. Look at this. They're blocking safeties. Look what happens when we block safeties. Power goes for 60. Do you guys like powers that go for 60? Yeah, that's awesome. And then same thing when you go back and you tell the line, hey, this guy can get open deep one-on-one. We can throw posts over the top of these guys. If you give us 4 seconds to throw, we're going to kill these guys. And all of a sudden they see that. It just breeds that success and that respect together. And I've always told Harper, I'm like, that instant division on your team, a lot of people overlook that stuff between receivers and offensive linemen, complaining to each other. When you can bridge that gap together, it makes things way easier. And that was always something I thought you and Calabrese did a great job of too.
Yeah, and I think like you watch film, I think one of the things that that you'll see when you have a great offensive line too, right, to answer your question, is like how excited are they after you guys score a touchdown, and and that's not always, it's a different level. You'll watch some teams and they'll score a touchdown and the offensive linemen are running off to the sideline,
Yep.
Sure.
You know how close and how good your culture is in a team just by how they celebrate after a touchdown. If they're all running down there and high five and it's authentic, then those receivers are probably blocking on run plays. The linemen are probably, pass protecting well on pass plays. Everybody has that, hey, I'm in this for you and I'm doing this for you. So that's another thing I think you look for is how you celebrate after a touchdown. That'll tell you a lot about your team.
Dub, you talked too about some of the, being able to get your coaches to do some of the mundane and little things. You are also one of the best ones I ever saw at scouring film, and you're going to find 1 or 2 formations where you know exactly what the defense is going to do. And I remember 2 distinct examples of it because you did it to us in 2015. I knew you were going to go fib because I knew we only had 1 check, and I knew you were going to go empty because we only had 1 check. So maybe talk a little bit about that, being able to find those things. Yeah,
well, just you get that from talking to defensive coordinators, like, what do you hate the most? And what formations cause you the most issues? So when I hear those problems, and now being kind of over on the defensive side a little bit, I know what kind of gives us problems even more. So I'm going to try to base as much things as we do out of those. We're going to build some good packages out of those concepts. And formations into the boundary, I love them. You can really do some good stuff. Outside zone to the boundary, top 3 plays in football. It's like, it's beautiful, especially if you're on that college hash, you have a little bit more room. It's beauty. But yeah, so that, and then then 2015, I give credit to Bobby Klink, the defensive coordinator. The first time you guys played us and you probably made him privy to this, Walls. Which,
maybe
on third downs, you knew, if you showed a particular coverage, we're going to have checks, to shots off that and things like that and different protection calls. And Bobby did a real good job disguising and showing like a coverage. And right before the snap, he was bailing out into cover 2 or man under halves, and he got me on a few third downs. So I'm like, you had your sub package and speed package that was issues too for protection. And so you're like, man, how are we going to protect all this stuff? We can't handle that guy off the edge, this and that. So it's like, okay, all right, I'm just going to empty, and we're going to widen our splits a little bit, and we're going to know what you're in because you only have 1 empty check, 1 or 2. And so that prevents all those, like, try to find an answer as to how we're going to protect all these different formations. So I think, having that ability to understand the conflict that those produce for a defensive coordinator can really save you some time and heartburn for those big games.
There's no doubt. That's it. And you watch some of the best programs. You'd find that, you'd see that they're getting into compressed sets and third downs. And just because you know what you're going to get, or, now you get into some of these compressed sets and they do go to a speed package, you have the ability to run the ball. You're watching teams like Wisconsin, it's 3rd and 11 and they're running, power or counter for first downs because other teams have subbed out their big nose tackle and they got their power rushers in the game. And then maybe now you tempo it a bit. I always just thought, again, when you're able to sit that first year and you're able to watch that much film and can kind of work through some of those things, a lot of that stuff really, really paid off because you almost got about 5 years of coaching learning in 1 year. You know what I'm saying?
Without a doubt. Having that ability just to really just go down the rabbit hole and dive deep into film and really having guys to collaborate with, like, having you there in that office with me, for those 8 to 10, 12, I mean, it was like 12, 14-hour days. I mean, Rowdy, we're going home and we're eating and we're watching, games on the big screen. We're like pausing. We got a whiteboard set up in the I mean, it was like it was a fraternity, but we weren't, it wasn't partying. It was, just grinding football. And we come up with all kinds of good stuff there in the kitchen, watching NFL replays and drawing up concepts. What a great time.
I was going to say, you talk about wide splits. This year, you guys had a package. You were really wide splits.
Yeah, we weren't very good, Rowdy. So when you have offensive linemen that we were real young and we're not very good, you have to get uber creative.
You were very creative with that. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I mean, like, we're playing Union, and they have like 3 Division I defensive linemen or whatever it is, and we don't, and you're just like, all right, let's get out of the box here. What can we do to create space? And so, yeah, we went like ultra Texas Tech splits from like Leach era 2005. I mean, we're talking, I don't know, 8-foot splits. I don't know. So, I think our tackles were on the opposite hash. I mean, it was like right tackle, left hash, left tackle, right hash. I mean, it was, but you have to, like, and that's a thing about, when you're limited, a lot of people think Jinx, Jinx football, loaded. So, you're going to have 7, 8 D1 guys every year. Well, Walls, you can attest this.
Yeah.
Not the case, right? I mean, it's like, you might have some years where you'll have, 2 or 3 like D1 guys, but for the most part, it's really, really normal looking kids and not a lot of depth. And so you got to get real creative on your schemes and your fundamentals and how you're teaching them.
Creative on how you practice too, to make sure we're getting those guys the plays and the touches that they need to get on both sides of the ball. Cause we got to be able to stop people, and we had to be able to score some points. And honestly, working for you and Coach Trim, 2 of the best in the business to be able to learn that stuff from, man.
Oh, man, it's good stuff.
Well, I think that's about all we got there, Coach Maddox, unless you got anything else you needed to roll. I know you've kind of been the podcast king lately, so if there's any other things you got, man, we'll keep rolling.
No, I mean, I could talk all night, man.
I could too, but I'm gonna have to help my wife. I don't know if you know this, but actually the bagman's actually buying his first house in a month.
Nice.
So
dude, there's nothing worse than moving, man. Oh, nothing worse than moving. But that's good, man. Moving into a house, that's huge, man. That's awesome. That's a lot of work there to get all that stuff in play, man.
Just leave the cat poster behind, Wall.
Yeah, that's that's pretty cool, man. That's kind of spooky, like Halloween or something.
I don't know. You'll have to ask Melissa that one. She says hi, by the way. I know she only got to meet you a couple of times because pretty much right after we won the state titles when I was going to BA, but she told me to say what's up.
Oh, man, tell her I said hello. That's awesome, man. Happy for you.
Yep. Sweetness. Well, you got any advice for the for a future homeowner, and also because I'm getting married in December too?
Yeah, basically, furniture shopping's horrible. It's miserable, but suck it up and, act like you're enjoying it. Like, that's a fight waiting to happen probably, so, but no, it's great, man. It's like when you get it all done, you're in there. It's like not a better feeling, having your own home and having your own stuff and new stuff. It's good, but it's a lot of work. But yeah, man, just get ready. You're gonna have to get a new job probably to pay off some furniture bills, things like that. So
that's why I'm doing a podcast.
There you go, man. You got to get a few more out, man.
I might have to call you back up and maybe and go get into some of these NFA camps again too.
Dude, hey, let's go, man. How about those times? Holy cow. What great times. I think Walls and I went on a world tour one year. I think we hit 8 cities in 5 days or something like that.
I remember, I don't know, because it was always, it was like planes, trains, and automobiles. You're always in a different vehicle, and you're flying all over the place. So I remember you and I hit the one in Fort Lauderdale, and we spent a little bit extra time there, and then we came rolling back up to, what was it, Penn State or Pennsylvania. And I remember I was so cashed out, I missed my flight coming out of Penn State.
Yeah.
And I was actually I'm flying back to Tulsa, and I was on a flight right next to Tamba Ali. And he's like, he thought I was dead. He kept hitting me, and he's like, "Man, you gonna be okay?" Like, I don't know, man. He's just jacking me around or whatever. Like, dude, I'm going back to Tulsa, and I'm gonna sleep for 3 straight days. But
How valuable is having something like that? And right, that's something, like I know you guys got your offensive line camp coming up, but think about if you could do, like 4 or 5 of those in a row and how much better that makes you as a coach, just, being at different cities, coaching different levels of kids. And we're not talking elite athletes. We're talking like 5th graders that can't throw a rock, 5 feet, and finding ways to be able to get inside a kid's head and get them to understand these fundamentals and concepts. So for me, what it did for me, and I think Walls would attest to that, is it just sharpened your coaching sword, because you're coaching every day and you're finding new and creative ways to get a concept across to a kid and get him to reproduce that under pressure. And so, being able to do the camps, people are like, man, it's a lot of work, but really it helps me out and it makes me a better coach because I'm keeping that coaching sword sharp, just like working out every day, keeping your muscles, in shape. It keeps your mind and your coaching, ability to stay sharp. So.
Well, sure, and I'm sure you can find, new little coaching cues and different things with little kids. That's what I've talked about. We actually talked about that yesterday, me and Walls, as far as you get some of these 4th graders and you're telling them, hey, have a flat back in your stance, and they don't understand what that means. Yeah. And so now you got to think, okay, well, push your stomach down, or, you got to find different ways to tell them. And now I've got that in my head. Okay, now had to think that all through of how to make that happen. Now maybe I got a kid in high school that same way, or that whatever reason, that's his little thing. Okay, now I've got a new coaching cue for him to get his back flat, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's really, I think, a sign of a master coach is he has there's a progression for everything, right? And so once you understand kind of the progression of teaching for an offensive line or a quarterback, and then you have, your different methods to get us the same kind of point across, because every kid's going to, trigger on a different word or a different concept. And as you build that library of information for yourself, it makes you so much better.
Yeah, having to give all those speeches and coaching cues to kids, talking to parents about why we do what we do, getting them to come back, so a little bit of salesmanship and all that stuff, all those skills you learn. And then my favorite part of the whole part was the brotherhood after you got done with coaches, going out to eat together, having that fellowship, having that ability to talk. A lot of skills that you learn that make you a much better coach, because you're having to deal with a bunch of different personalities and guys that come from different walks of life.
Yeah, Walls, you're a master at that, man. You're a master relationship guy. You got your ability to give nicknames to people is amazing. The guy can just come up with brilliant nicknames for any coach, and it's hilarious. I love it, man. But think about Rowdy. Think about this. It took me a 3-hour college class to be a coach, right? I took a care and prevention class. Now I can coach, but where do I go to learn how to coach? Right. I think there's so many coaches out there that think coaching is, either yelling or it's just about, drawing up plays. But where do I go to learn how to distill information down into a way that a young man can replicate it under pressure? And there's an art and a science to that. And I think that's what the NFA camps have done for me and I think Walls, like I said, can speak to that too, is when you're out there and I'm in a group with Walls and I see, how he approaches the kid or maybe something he said, I'm like, man, that's good. I need to remember that. And so it's we're making each other better just by watching how we coach. And then you start to, see, there's a better way to coach a kid. And I was lucky enough to have a head coach at Broken Arrow when I worked there out of college, Rick Jones, who actually his thing and the thing he's best at is teaching coaches how to coach. Literally, he's in your individual drill and he's writing notes and he's making notes of your individual drill. And so I can remember my first year, he's calling me into the office after my first day, and he's sit down, he pulls out this notepad and he's like, okay, you snap the ball once every 45 seconds in your individual drill. He's like, you need to figure out a way to make 2 or 3 more lines, and you need to coach these key points. It's and I never thought about that. And if he never would have taken the time to set me down and teach me how to actually coach, how to set up drills, how to emphasize key positions, how to know when to talk a lot and when to talk a little, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without that. And I think we as coaches, as older guys, as we get older in the game, as we see these young guys coming in, I think we really need to do a good job of teaching these young coaches how to do that. It's not about yelling and up downs. It's about, a progression and a process to do that. So.
Well, I'll tell you that one of the coolest part about, because I learned, most, if not all, my stuff from Walls and Coach A, but, as far as coaching goes, the cool part about Walls, that how he can do it is a master, and it sounds bad, but master manipulator. he gets me to do. He'd get you to do what he wanted me to do or what he needed out of it, but without being pushy, without saying, "Hey, you need to do this, 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 and this." It was like, some awesome way around it to where eventually it got to what he wanted, but it wasn't. You didn't feel like you were getting like bossed around necessarily. It was like a very clever way to go about it, but to still get what was best out of it for myself. But it was clever, and I think it's a big deal. And I don't know how that's one of the things that I would like to really build on as well is getting, my point across and doing all that, but doing it in a clever way where, it's not like, oh, okay, now he told me I do that, now I have to do it. It's like it's been implanted. It's been I forget what that movie is where Inception. It's been Inception into my mind.
Yeah.
I think it was really clever how some of those guys can do that, like Walls.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think, a sign of a master coach is the ability to, get guys intrinsically motivated to do, something that they may not either know how to do or want to do. And that's, I mean, if you see a guy or you work for a guy that does that, you need to emulate those things because that's really what makes a great coach.
And that was another thing, and we've talked about it a little bit, but that's how I learned, everything about the offense that we started getting into and all the run game that I know, obviously from Dave as well, but from Walls of me just sitting around in the summer or in the spring until everyone else left. And then eventually, Walls wouldn't go home. He'd be up there, watching more film than anybody else. And just luckily could sit in there and start asking him questions, or he would, once everyone else left and he was done with what he was doing, it would be like, all right, well, what do you want to talk about? What do you need to know? What do you want to learn? And it was really cool being able to have that ability to have a guy that was willing to sit up there, work for hours and hours and hours. As long as I stayed up there, he'd stay up there and teach me or tell me anything I wanted to know.
Yeah, I think that as a young coach, if there's any young coaches listening here, I think they're so eager to move up the ladder and to get a title. And, they have all these plans and goals, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But what you really need to do is you need to go into a great program that has great coaches, and you need to learn, and you need to listen, and you need to, work for those guys. And, those times that you get one-on-one with a great coach like Walls or someone else, in that room one-on-one, and you need to capture those moments and take advantage of those because they're hard to find. It's hard to find guys that really understand the game and can explain it in a simple way, and it can, and really inspire you to get you where you want to be.
Well, I think it was easy for me because, again, I'll always be forever grateful for Dub, and I'm not going to sit here, and blow the horn. I'm just telling from my heart. Dub hiring me in 2010 was the single most important thing in my coaching career because it forced me to really look at myself and the weak points of my game, and I got a lot better from Dub Maddox. I look at two people who have made me who I am as far as a coach. Ryan Mullaney, who gave me my first job, and coach, and Maddox knows Mulls because Mulls helped me get the job at Jenks. But then going to Jenks and working for Dub Maddox, and then ultimately, everyone says, "Oh, you worked for Alan Trimble." Yes, there would have been no Alan Trimble in my life if Dub wouldn't have taken a shot on me. Period. So those are the two guys I owe the most. And again, I learned all those things that you learned from Coach Jones. All those things bled through you in the way that you coached and the way that I was able to learn a lot of those things too. And I put my own spin on it, and now I'm just paying it forward to other guys that have worked for me.
Yeah, but the thing about it though, Walls, is like you have those characteristics that not many people are willing to, portray or work at. And I think, what are you looking for in a coach on your staff, or when you're looking for people? Like if you look at any great company, CEOs, what are they looking for? What do they need? They want people that are willing to show up, right? Listen and work. That's really the three keys for greatness. If I can just show up every day on time, if I can listen, which means I have, learning, and then work, then you're going to be great at whatever you do. And you just do it every day. And that's the problem, I think, with this millennial generation is they're not willing to show up, and they're not willing to listen, they're not willing to work. And, I talked to my brother, my brother works for the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? I was talking to him last night. And we were talking about some of these concepts when you take over a program and you're trying to hire, coaches and what you're looking for in just leadership. And he's like, man, he goes, you won't believe it. Every year, these last, 5 or 6 years, we have so many college kids coming out want to work for an NBA organization or NFL or major league organization. What better job is it to wake up as a sports fan and go work for a professional team, right? So, there's all these universities now that have sports management programs where when my brother came out in 2002, there was only 2 schools in the country that had sports management degrees. And so he had to go like Middle Tennessee State. Well, now every school offers it, okay, because there's such a high demand for it and people pay to go there. So now they've got, all these interns that are applying for this internship for the Oklahoma Thunder, and they only have 20 spots available. So when they whittle it down to who these 20 guys are, he's like, you won't believe like how those 20, less than 1% of these people we will offer a job at the end of their internship because they don't do 3 things. They don't show up on time, they're not willing to listen, and they're not willing to work. And these are real simple concepts, but simple isn't always easy, right? And so just my whole point of this is that, that's why I hired you or wanted you. I was like, man, I got to get this guy because Walls, I mean, he was willing to show up, he's willing to listen, he's willing to work, and you had that passion within you. And that's the same passion I have within me, and that I know, Rowdy, that's the same passion that you have within you. So, it's like that Nick Saban video a couple years ago. What he say is like average people, or I don't remember how it went, but don't really get along with average, or elite people don't get along with average or whatever because
mediocrity hates excellence.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. If you're trying to live that excellent life and be excellent in what you do, like you don't really get along or really can relate to those people that are mediocre. And so when you find a guy like a Rowdy or a Walls, man, it's like I'm linking up hip to hip and let's go get better. And there's nothing better than being in a group of guys. And Rowdy, you can attest to that when you were on staff with Walls, being in that film room or being on the field with those types of guys going into battle. I mean, there's no better feeling than that. So if we can do that, man, we'll be all right.
Oh, there's no doubt. And it's good, as an assistant coach, when you got a coordinator like Walls or like Coach Wilkinson, when, even when I know we've joked about it before, but they're asking, what do you guys like right here? And you're like, it doesn't really matter what I like. Well, I want to know what you guys like.
There's always radio silence every time I'd ask, what do you guys like?
That's a funny story, Walls. My first year as OC, we're undefeated and we're at Stillwater playing the finals against Union. I think we go up 28-7 or something at half. And I'm thinking, oh, man, we've got this sealed. What a great season. First year's OC, undefeated, all-time state scoring record, and they start making some adjustments. We turn it over. And that's really the biggest lesson I learned as my first year's OC is not having a plan for everything. And then when pressure hits, how do you respond? And I think one of the things that I needed in that fourth quarter, that final drive, was that common language and that ability to have all that stuff planned out, and I remember saying, hey, Walls, what do you like up here? And he's like, crickets, And I'm like, Dave, what do you like? And Dave's like, hey, dude, I'm the O-line coach. This is offense is your gig, I mean, this is different, We were looking at those 11 other guys in the eye in the huddle, and I didn't have the answer. And that really was the genesis of kind of that, of taking R4 to that offensive game planning level and having the ability to have, link all your coaches together with that common language and process. So when you get in those situations in a game where the pressure hits and you might get stuck, all the other coaches are seeing the game the same way, and they can help you. Hey, let's run wide zone here, or let's run weak side power. And they can help you remember, in those moments of pressure of what you need to do, because you can't do it alone.
I was going to say one time I piped up and Walls is asking, and it was I will forever haunt me because we played against you guys at Jinx when we won at Jinx, and to me it was one of the most perfect called games by Walls ever. It was unbelievably called game by Walls, and it was 3rd and short. We ran power, we didn't get it. It's 4th and 1. What do you guys want? And he's like, I'm thinking play action. And I said I'll just run power again. And he's like, okay. And we ran it and we got stopped. And that was the one mar on the entire day call sheet. So I still that'll haunt me probably forever. But so after that, I was radio silence. Whatever you want, Walls. When you got a guy like Wilkinson you can trust, whatever you want, Wilkinson, you guys roll with it. We'll get it blocked.
That's awesome. That was a great called game. It was, man. The old jump pass there and at a double tight full house. Beautiful.
It's a funny story, that one. So I mean, we'd had our whole thing going up to that, and again, this is another thing we took from you and Trimble. After the Murderers Row, we play non-conference. You have a few opponents you feel like you can get by and just run your base stuff. You execute, do the stuff that you do well. Well, you start game planning for Jakes literally week 3. So we're getting ready for that. So, I mean, I'd been planning on doing jump pass for 2 years. Well, the year before, you guys kicked our ass. We didn't have a chance to use it. So I'm like, maybe this year we'll have a chance. So And I told myself, I said, when we get to the first 3rd and 1, I'm calling it. And Dave is like, all right, we're on. And then we even said too, if we score our first touchdown, we're gonna onside kick.
Yeah.
And you guys took the onside kick to the house.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So it's 7-7, and we get down. It's 3rd and 1. I told Dave, I'm calling it. Boom, call it. And we hit it. And I mean, and then I knew right away. Okay, it's tempo. We're running. Let's run no pin pull. We score next play. But
yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing in those big games. I mean, as a play caller, it's really hard to like have the guts to make those calls. But I think that's what makes great. It's risk assessment, and it's knowing when to take risk. And when you look at the big picture, I mean, that play was a huge backbreaker. I mean, I know it was early in the game, but it was like, oh no, man, these guys are going to pull out all the stops. And now all of a sudden, you get inside the our heads like, man, these guys are pulling all the stops. And I think that was a great game plan you had, man. That was a piece of work.
Well, like I said, it helped that you had 4 weeks to prepare, because then when we got into the finals, you only had the 2 weeks. And I think we made some mistakes. I can sit back and I can reflect on it. We didn't practice nearly as hard. I thought, the week before the championship we did, but the week prior, the second week out, I thought we were a little bit lackadaisical personally. And again, that's always something you kind of look back at and you wish. But again, we hadn't earned the right to do that yet. We're at Jenks. You guys are playing for your 4th in a row. You had kids that were used to those pressure situations. I felt like we needed to maybe create a few more of those pressure situations, again, to put those guys in. You saw what happened. I mean, we fumbled the opening kickoff. We have 3 turnovers. You guys don't have any. Right. And that's the whole difference in the game. So, I mean.
Yeah, man, that was a good team. A lot of good players that you guys had. That was some fun times. It wasn't fun playing you because we're friends. And,
I know.
But it was some good competition.
Yeah. I know those are some good memories, man. I know Bobby and those guys, it was fun to kind of sit back and, they're always kind of picking your brain. Coach Anel, he was always asking questions for me. Coach Anel, like, hey, what's Dub thinking here? Hey, what's Dub thinking on this? Like, I don't know what Dub's thinking right here, But I got an idea, but, I could give him some things. But, I mean,
two of my favorite run play, maybe not favorite, but some of my favorite change-ups or what I like to use a lot came from when we had to play Jenks in the finals game, Walls, when you put in the too tight inside zone and you seal with that tackle.
The tackle,
against Odd, and then how we ended up and now how we block pin pull against Odd with the double, buck sweep kind of look with doubling the 4 to the backside and guard kicking and swabbing. So, and that all came from Wall's, game planning against Jinx in that final game. So, it was really cool to get those out.
When you're going against an odd front every day at Jinx for how many years, Walls, you come up with some pretty good odd front beaters.
I say Maddox had, I mean, sometimes he was like, hey, man, we see an odd front. It's going to be like fishing with dynamite.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love going against the odd front because that's all we've gone against for 8 years.
Hey, if you're sitting there just no one runs all of a sudden you get an even front. You're like, holy shit, what are we going to do?
Oh, dude, yeah. No kidding, man. And really, it's like, okay, what is this, a free technique here? I mean, yeah.
Check it to the 3. Coach, what is that?
Exactly. No, that's good stuff, man.
All right, Dub, I'm going to let you get rolling, man. I know you got a bunch of stuff going on, but really excited to see, kind of R4 from the ground level at a program like this. I know when I come down there now, it's going to be nice to kind of have a sanctuary to go study stuff and have the program now. I mean, it's basically become kind of R4 Central there at Old Victory Christian, man. So
yeah, if you guys, any listener ever in the area, come on by. We got a great office, field house. We can talk ball. Walls, when you're in town, I think you're coming in next week. If you can have some time, let's hook up.